I've spent 6 years working as a ranger in the Appalachian Mountains, and I can tell you something most tourists never learn. The wilderness isn't empty. It only pretends to be. The night I learned that lesson, I was sitting alone in Ranger Station 12 with a loaded shotgun across my lap and a list of rules that should never have existed. The thing is, nobody warned me about rule number 3. Not really. They mentioned it. They laughed about it. One old ranger even crossed himself when he saw it hanging on the wall. But nobody actually explained it. And that mistake almost got me killed. It started 3 weeks after my transfer. Station 12 sat deep in a section of federal wilderness so remote that most maps didn't bother naming it. The nearest town was nearly 50 miles away. Cell service didn't exist. The radio worked when it felt like it. Most nights were quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that made you aware of your own heartbeat. I was finishing paperwork when the emergency radio crackled to life. A burst of static. Then a voice. Station 12? Respond. I grabbed the microphone. 12 here. Static. Then. Any unusual activity tonight? I frowned. The voice belonged to Chief Ranger Hal Mercer. He sounded nervous. That alone was unusual. No, sir. A pause. Anything at all? I looked through the station windows. Nothing. Just trees. Endless black trees. No. Another pause. Then. Good. The transmission ended. No explanation. No context. Just silence. I stared at the radio for several seconds. Something felt wrong. Hal wasn't the kind of man who worried easily. The guy had survived bear attacks, flash floods, wildfires, and one incident involving a meth lab hidden inside a cave. Fear wasn't part of his personality. Yet he'd sounded terrified. I tried calling him back. Nothing. Only static. By 10 o'clock the station felt different. The forest sounded wrong. I know that sounds ridiculous. But anyone who spends enough time outdoors learns to listen. The woods have a rhythm. Wind. Insects. Owls. Small animals moving through leaves. Life creates noise. That night the noise disappeared. Every bit of it. No birds. No insects. No movement. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels deliberate. As if something is listening. I checked the clock. 10:17 p.m. A knot formed in my stomach. I stood and walked toward the bulletin board near the front door. That's where the rules were posted. Officially they were called Emergency Wilderness Procedures. Unofficially everyone called them the Night Rules. There were 12 of them. Most seemed ridiculous. Rule 1. Lock all exterior doors before sunset. Rule 2. Close every blind before midnight. Rule 3. If anyone knocks after midnight, do not answer. Do not look through the windows. Do not acknowledge them. No exceptions. I stared at that rule. Even then it bothered me. No exceptions? What if someone needed help? What if they were injured? Lost? Rule 4. If you hear footsteps on the roof, remain inside. Rule 5. Do not whistle. Rule 6. If the radio says your name in a voice you don't recognize, turn it off immediately. The rest were equally insane. I used to think they were traditions. Mountain folklore. Ways to scare rookies. That belief lasted until 11:43 p.m. The first knock came from the front door. 3 slow taps. Knock. 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 I froze. Every muscle in my body tightened. Nobody should have been out there. The station sat miles from the nearest trail. Visitors didn't just wander in. Especially at night. I waited. The knocking came again. 3 taps. Slow. Patient. My eyes drifted toward the rules. Rule 3. A chill crawled down my spine. I laughed nervously. This was stupid. Probably a lost camper. Maybe another ranger. I started toward the door. Then stopped. Something felt wrong. Not dangerous. Wrong. Like hearing a familiar song played backward. Another knock. This time louder. Then a voice. Hello? A woman. Young. Scared. Please help me. I moved closer. The voice sounded genuine. Terrified. I think I'm lost. I reached for the door handle. Then remembered something. The station sat nearly 7 miles from the nearest public trail. How had she gotten here? At midnight? In complete darkness? The voice came again. Closer now. Please! My hand remained on the handle. Every instinct told me to open the door. Every rule told me not to. The woman started crying. Real tears. Real fear. Or at least it sounded real. I looked toward the window beside the entrance. Just one glance. That's all it would take. One look. The rules couldn't possibly matter. Right. Then the radio exploded with static. The sudden noise nearly made me jump. A voice emerged through the interference. Hal Mercer. Shouting. Panicked. Liam! My blood turned cold. I grabbed the microphone. Hal? Do not open that door. The words came fast. Desperate. Listen to me carefully. Outside, the woman kept crying. Inside, Hal sounded terrified. You hear me? Yeah. Don't look outside. The crying stopped instantly. Not gradually. Not naturally. 1 second there were sobs. The next there was absolute silence. I felt every hair on my arms stand up. The change was immediate. Predatory. As if something had forgotten to keep pretending. Hal must have heard it too. Because his voice dropped to a whisper. Oh God! The silence outside lasted several seconds. Then a new voice spoke. A man's voice. Deep. Calm. Liam. I stopped breathing. I had never heard that voice before. Yet somehow it knew my name. Liam. The speaker sounded inches from the door. I know you're inside. My heart hammered. The radio crackled again. Hal whispered one sentence. The sentence that changed everything. It finally found Station 12. Something slammed into the side of the building. The entire station shook. Pictures crashed from the walls. The lights flickered. Outside, something massive moved through the darkness. Not walking. Circling. Hunting. And for the first time since becoming a ranger, I realized the night rules weren't designed to protect us from the wilderness. They were designed to protect the wilderness from whatever was trying to get in. The thing outside spoke again. And this time it sounded exactly like my dead father. Open the door, son! The knocking started once more. Slow. Patient. Certain. As if it already knew I was going to make a terrible mistake. He'd been dead for 11 years. I was the one who identified the body. I was the one who stood beside the grave. And yet the voice outside Station 12 sounded perfect. Not close. Not similar. Perfect. Every inflection. Every pause. Every tiny detail my memory had preserved. Open the door, son! The knock followed. 3 slow taps. Knock. 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 I backed away from the entrance. The shotgun suddenly felt inadequate. The radio hissed with static. Then Hal's voice returned. Liam. I grabbed the microphone. What the hell is that thing? A long silence answered me. When Hal finally spoke, he sounded exhausted. Like a man discussing a nightmare he'd spent years avoiding. I was hoping you'd never have to find out. Something scraped across the roof. The sound resembled metal dragged over concrete. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. I looked upward. The roof groaned. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Outside, my father's voice laughed softly. Not a normal laugh. A hungry one. The kind a predator makes after discovering prey. Liam. I ignored it. What is it, Hal? The chief ranger inhaled deeply. First, tell me exactly what happened. I quickly described the woman. The crying. The sudden silence. The voice that knew my name. Hal cursed under his breath. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. It knows you're alone. What does that mean? It means you're being tested. Another impact rattled the station. This one struck the rear wall. The building shook hard enough to knock books from a shelf. I checked the windows. Still covered. Still sealed. The night rules suddenly seemed a lot less ridiculous. Tested for what? Hal didn't answer immediately. When he finally did, his voice had changed. He sounded like someone reading from a report. Like he'd rehearsed these words. Have you ever wondered why Station 12 exists? I blinked. What? Answered the question. No. You should have. Outside, footsteps moved around the building. Not human footsteps. Too heavy. Too slow. Each step sounded like a tree trunk striking earth. Thud. 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 Meanwhile, Hal continued speaking. The federal government claims Station 12 was built in 1958. A pause. That's a lie. I felt my pulse quicken. What are you talking about? The original station predates the Civil War. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence returned. Hal lowered his voice. The first structure was built in 1836. I stared at the radio. Why? To guard something. My throat tightened. Outside, my father's voice spoke again. You're listening to the wrong people, Liam. I ignored it. What were they guarding? The radio crackled. Then, we don't know. That answer somehow felt worse. For several seconds neither of us spoke. The silence stretched. Then Hal continued. What we do know is that strange disappearances began here long before the station existed. A loud scratching noise emerged from beneath the floorboards. I nearly jumped. Something moved underneath the building. Something large. The floor vibrated. The scratching continued. Slow. Methodical. As if claws were testing the foundation. Hal kept talking. Native tribes avoided this section of the mountains. I listened carefully. They called it the Hollow Kingdom. The phrase sent a chill through me. Hollow Kingdom? According to old accounts, something lived beneath the mountains. The scratching stopped. A second later, a low sound drifted up through the floor. A voice. Faint. Distant. Whispering. Multiple voices. Hundreds of them. My blood turned to ice. I couldn't understand the words. But I recognized the emotion. Desperation. The whispers sounded trapped. Like people calling from the bottom of a well. Liam. Hal's voice snapped me back. I'm here. Listen carefully. The chief ranger took a breath. Open the cabinet under the communications desk. I hesitated. Then complied. The cabinet contained emergency supplies. Flares. Medical kits. Batteries. And something I'd never noticed before. A locked metal box. My stomach dropped. What is this? The reason you were transferred there. I stared at it. What? Another long silence. Then, you weren't assigned to Station 12 by accident. The room suddenly felt colder. What are you saying? I'm saying someone chose you. My grip tightened on the radio. For what? The answer came immediately. As bait. A violent crash struck the roof. The station lights flickered. Outside, something roared. The sound barely resembled an animal. It sounded ancient. Immense. Wrong. Every instinct screamed that humans weren't meant to hear noises like that. I stepped back. Heart racing. Bait for what? Hal answered. For it. The metal box suddenly seemed much heavier. More important. What is inside? A key? I frowned. A key to what? We don't know. That answer again. Always the same answer. Nobody knew anything. Yet everyone was terrified. Outside, my father's voice changed. The imitation slipped. Just for a moment. The words became distorted. Layered. like multiple voices speaking simultaneously. Open the door. The station windows rattled. Something slammed against the wall hard enough to shake the entire structure. Then silence. Absolute silence. Even the whispers beneath the floor vanished. The radio crackled softly. Liam. Yeah? If it gets inside, use the key. I looked at the box. How? We'll figure that out later. That's your plan? No. His voice grew darker. My plan is making sure it never gets inside. For the first time since this began, I heard fear in Hal's voice. Real fear. Not for himself. For me. For everyone. I examined the box more closely. An old brass emblem decorated the lid. The image showed a crown. Beneath it sat a symbol I didn't recognize. A black circle surrounded by antlers. The sight triggered an unexpected feeling. Recognition. Not memory. Something deeper. As though part of me had seen it before. A sharp pain erupted behind my eyes. I stumbled. The room spun. And suddenly I wasn't standing inside Station 12 anymore. For a split second I saw something else. A massive underground throne room. Stone pillars. Ancient fires. A crown made from bone. And a giant figure sitting upon a throne. Waiting. Sleeping. Dreaming. Its eyes opened. The vision vanished instantly. I collapsed against the desk. Breathing hard. Sweat covered my skin. Liam? Hal sounded alarmed. What happened? I stared at the symbol on the box. Unable to look away. Because one horrifying realization had just settled into my mind. The thing outside the station wasn't trying to get in. It was trying to stop me from opening that box. And somewhere deep beneath the Appalachian Mountains, something far worse had just noticed I existed. The moment those eyes opened in my vision, something changed. Not outside. Inside me. It felt like standing too close to a cliff edge and suddenly realizing you've been walking backward for years without noticing. The symbol on the metal box seemed almost alive. The antlers. The black circle. The ancient crown. I couldn't stop staring at it. Liam. Hal's voice crackled through the radio. Liam, answer me. I blinked. The vision vanished completely. I'm here. What did you see? The question caught me off guard. You know about that? A pause. Then. Tell me. I described everything. The throne. The underground chamber. The giant figure. The eyes. When I finished, the radio remained silent for several seconds. Too long. Far too long. Finally Hal spoke. His voice sounded pale. As if he just confirmed a terrible suspicion. You weren't supposed to see that. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? It means the key recognized you. Outside, something slammed into a tree. The impact sounded powerful enough to split the trunk in half. Wood cracked. Branches shattered. Then silence returned. Patient silence. Waiting silence. Whatever was outside had stopped trying to force its way in. That worried me more than the attacks. Predators stopped rushing when they became confident. I looked toward the front door. Hal, what exactly is happening? The answer came immediately. The station has been activated. I frowned. Activated? You opened the box. I haven't even unlocked it. You didn't need to. That wasn't reassuring. Nothing about this conversation was reassuring. I examined the brass lock again. It appeared ancient. Handcrafted. Older than anything belonging in a government ranger station. Then I noticed something strange. There was no keyhole. My pulse quickened. What kind of lock doesn't have a keyhole? Hal exhaled. The kind that wasn't made by people. A loud metallic groan echoed beneath the floor. Both of us froze. The sound came from deep underground. Far below the station. Something massive was moving. Not walking. Turning. Like an enormous mechanism awakening after centuries of stillness. The floor vibrated beneath my boots. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Outside, the creature responded instantly. A roar exploded from the darkness. The windows rattled violently. The station shook. And for the first time, I heard genuine fear in the monster's voice. Not anger. Fear. The realization hit me immediately. Whatever was awakening beneath the mountain scared it. That meant the thing underground was worse. Much worse. The radio crackled. Liam. I'm listening. You need to leave. I stared at the microphone. What? You need to get out of Station 12. I laughed nervously. Leave? Have you forgotten what's outside? If you stay there, you'll die. That got my attention. The Chief Ranger never exaggerated. Never. What aren't you telling me? A long pause followed. Then, the station was never meant to protect the Rangers. I felt a chill run down my spine. It was built to protect the key. Outside, something began circling again. Slowly. Methodically. The footsteps sounded closer now. Thud. 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 The creature knew we were talking. Listening. Waiting. Hal continued. 3 nights ago we lost contact with Station 9. What happened? No survivors. My grip tightened. What killed them? We don't know. The answer sounded forced. Like he was lying. Or repeating a lie he'd been ordered to tell. Outside, a voice suddenly whispered beside the front window. Not through it. Beside it. As though someone stood inches away. Liam. The voice belonged to my mother. I nearly dropped the radio. My mother was alive. Living in Ohio. Yet the imitation sounded flawless. Don't listen to him. I stepped away from the window. Every instinct screamed at me not to respond. The voice followed me. Gentle. Comforting. Manipulative. He's using you. The floor trembled again. Stronger this time. A deep rumble echoed upward from beneath the station. The walls vibrated. The cabinets shook. And then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. For one terrible second I stood completely blind. The emergency generator kicked on. Red backup lights flooded the station. My heart stopped. Someone stood outside the front window. I wasn't supposed to look. Rule 3 had specifically warned against it. But the blinds had shifted during the shaking. Only an inch. A tiny gap. Just enough to see. A face stared back at me. Human. Almost. Its features kept changing. My father. My mother. Old friends. People I served with in the military. Faces rotated like cards in a deck. One after another. Faster. 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 Until they became a blur. Then the thing smiled. The smile stretched impossibly wide. Far beyond human anatomy. I staggered backward. The creature's head tilted. It knew I had seen it. The smile widened further. The station shook violently. Every window exploded inward. Glass sprayed across the room. I hit the floor. The emergency lights flickered. Outside, the creature screamed. Not in triumph. In agony. A blinding flash erupted somewhere beyond the tree line. The entire forest lit up white. For a split second I saw everything. The mountains. The station. The surrounding wilderness. And the thing. It stood nearly 15 feet tall. Its body resembled a man stretched into something impossible. Long limbs. Antler-like growths. Skin covered in shifting faces. Thousands of them. All moving beneath the surface. All screaming silently. The creature recoiled from the distant light. Then vanished into the darkness. The flash disappeared. Night returned. My breathing became ragged. The radio hissed. Liam. I slowly picked it up. You saw it. It wasn't a question. No kidding. What did it look like? I described the monster. When I finished, Hal whispered a curse. What? The descriptions match. What descriptions? The old reports. Every answer created more questions. I was getting tired of that. Another rumble echoed beneath the station, this time accompanied by a sound. A horn. Deep. Ancient. Powerful. The note rolled through the mountain like thunder. Everything went silent afterward. Even the forest. Even the creature. Even the wind. Then a new voice emerged from the radio. Not Hal. Not human. Ancient. Calm. And impossibly distant. As though it traveled across centuries to reach me. Bearer. My blood froze. The voice continued. The gate is opening. The radio died. Static vanished. Power vanished. Every light in the station went dark. Outside, something enormous began moving beneath the mountain. And for the first time in nearly 200 years, whatever slept beneath the Appalachian wilderness was waking up. The darkness lasted only a few seconds. It felt like an hour. I stood motionless inside Station 12, gripping the shotgun while the last words from the radio echoed through my head. Bearer. The gate is opening. ***. Then the emergency lights flickered back on. Red light washed across the shattered station. Broken glass covered the floor. Cold mountain air drifted through the ruined windows. And for the first time since arriving at Station 12, I felt completely alone. Hal was gone. The radio remained dead. No static. No signal. Nothing. Outside, the forest had become unnaturally quiet. The creature with the shifting faces had vanished. That should have made me feel better. Instead, it made me nervous. Predators rarely disappeared without a reason. Something had frightened it. Something beneath the mountain. The same thing that had spoken through the radio. The same thing that had called me bearer. I looked down at the metal box. The brass emblem seemed darker now. Almost warm. A strange pulse traveled through the metal. Like a heartbeat. Slow. Steady. Waiting. The moment my fingers touched the lid, pain shot through my hand. I jerked back. The symbol flashed. A burst of images slammed into my mind. Stone corridors. Ancient tunnels. Torches burning blue. Massive doors covered in symbols older than any language I'd ever seen. Then another image appeared. A man. A ranger. Standing inside Station 12. Not me. Someone else. His uniform looked decades old. Blood covered his face. Fear filled his eyes. Behind him stood the same antlered creature I'd seen outside. Only this time it wasn't attacking. It was running. Running from something. The ranger looked directly at me. Not through me. At me. As if he could somehow see across time. Then he spoke. 3 words. Don't open it. The vision ended. I staggered backward. Breathing hard. The station returned around me. Red lights. Broken windows. Cold air. Reality. At least I hoped it was reality. I stared at the box. The warning repeated inside my head. Don't open it. Unfortunately, that only made me want answers more. A loud crash echoed somewhere outside. Then another. Trees snapping. Branches breaking. Something large was moving through the wilderness. Fast. Very fast. Not toward the station. Away from it. Whatever frightened the creature was getting closer. I crossed the room and searched the emergency cabinets. If I was leaving, I needed supplies. Within minutes I had a backpack loaded with water, flares, ammunition, a first aid kit, batteries, and enough food to survive several days. The box went into the bag last. The moment it touched the pack, the entire station trembled. Not violently. Just enough to notice. A warning. Or perhaps a greeting. I didn't know which possibility was worse. Then I heard it. A sound coming from below. Not beneath the building. Inside it. A hidden mechanism clicked somewhere under the floorboards. I froze. Another click followed. Then a metallic grinding noise. My flashlight swept across the room. Nothing. The sound continued. Slowly. Methodically. Then one section of the floor shifted. Dust exploded upward. Wood groaned. And a hidden hatch emerged from beneath a layer of old planks. My heart began hammering. The hatch looked ancient. Far older than the station itself. Iron hinges. Hand-forged metal. A rusted ring handle. For several seconds I simply stared. Nobody had ever mentioned a basement. Nobody had ever mentioned a hatch. Then again, nobody had explained Rule 3 either. The realization hit me. This wasn't opening because the station was damaged. It was opening because I had touched the box. The hatch wanted me to find it. A terrible idea. Naturally, I opened it. The smell hit immediately. Cold stone. Wet earth. Ancient dust. The scent of a place sealed for generations. My flashlight illuminated a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The steps disappeared after only 20 feet. Beyond that was nothing but blackness. I should have left. Every survival instinct told me to leave. Instead, I climbed down. Because whatever answers existed were down there. And because the mountain clearly wasn't finished with me. The hatch closed above my head the moment I reached the bottom. The sound nearly stopped my heart. Clang. Darkness swallowed the staircase. Only my flashlight remained. The tunnel stretched ahead. Its walls consisted of carved stone. Not natural rock. Carved. Built. Someone had constructed this place. And they had done it a very long time ago. Symbols covered the walls. The same crown. The same black circle. The same antlers. Every few feet another symbol appeared. Thousands of them. As though whoever built these tunnels wanted visitors to remember one thing. This place belonged to the crown. The passage eventually widened into a chamber. I stopped immediately. The room was enormous. Far larger than should have been possible beneath the station. Stone pillars stretched upward into darkness. Ancient banners hung from the walls. Most had decayed beyond recognition. Others remained strangely intact. The symbol appeared on all of them. The crowned circle. The antlers. The kingdom beneath the mountain. At the center of the room stood a stone table. Something rested upon it. A journal. I approached cautiously. The leather cover looked ancient. Yet somehow preserved. The first page bore a date. 1836. The year Hal had mentioned. My pulse quickened. I began reading. The handwriting belonged to a man named Elias Boone, the founder of Station 12. The entries started normally. Survey reports. Construction notes. Supply inventories. Then the tone changed. One passage immediately caught my attention. The knocking returned last night. I swallowed. The journal continued. 3 men answered. 3 men vanished. We found their footprints leading into the mountain. We did not find the men. ****. A chill ran through me. I turned the page. Another entry. The thing outside is not the enemy. My stomach tightened. Another page. The thing outside is the jailer. I stared at those words. Read them twice. Then a third time. No. That couldn't be right. The creature wearing human faces was the jailer? The monster? The thing that knew my name? Another entry followed. Written months later. The handwriting had become frantic. Uneven. Terrified. The king is dreaming again. My heart skipped a beat. I remembered the throne from my vision. The sleeping figure. The ancient eyes. The journal continued. Every dream opens the gate a little wider. A loud horn echoed through the stone chamber. The same horn I'd heard earlier. Deep. Ancient. Impossible. The sound vibrated through the entire mountain. Dust fell from the ceiling. The stone pillars shook. Then I heard something else. Footsteps. Not ahead. Behind me. Inside the tunnel. Slow. Heavy. Approaching. Thud. 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 My flashlight swung toward the entrance. The beam illuminated a figure standing motionless at the edge of the darkness. Watching me. Waiting. The figure stepped forward. My breath caught. The man wore an old ranger uniform. His face was pale. His eyes completely black. And stitched across his chest was a faded name tag. Elias Boone. The author of the journal. The founder of Station 12. The man who had died nearly 2 centuries ago. He smiled. Then he spoke. You should have listened to the warning. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. The figure standing at the mouth of the tunnel should have been impossible. Elias Boone had written the journal in 1836. Even if he had somehow survived, he would have been nearly 200 years old. Yet there he stood. His ranger uniform was faded and torn. His skin looked waxy beneath my flashlight. And those eyes were completely black. Not empty sockets. Not shadows. Black eyes. Like polished obsidian. Watching me. Studying me. Waiting. The horn echoed again through the mountain. The sound rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. Boone's smile widened. You hear that? His voice sounded wrong. Not dead. Not alive. Like several voices speaking slightly out of sync. I tightened my grip on the shotgun. Who are you? The smile remained. You already know. No. You do. Another step forward. The temperature in the chamber dropped instantly. Cold air rushed through the room. The old banners fluttered. Boone's gaze shifted toward my backpack. Toward the metal box. His expression changed. The smile disappeared. Fear replaced it. Real fear. That surprised me more than anything else. You brought it. I didn't answer. You shouldn't have brought it. His voice sounded strained now. Urgent. As if he genuinely meant it. The mountain trembled. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Somewhere far below, something massive moved. The vibration traveled through the stone floor and into my legs. Boone looked downward. His fear deepened. Then he looked back at me. We're running out of time. The words felt sincere. That was the problem. Everything about him felt sincere. And yet every instinct screamed not to trust him. I took a step backward. What are you? Boone laughed softly. Same thing you'll become if you stay too long. The answer chilled me. Before I could respond, movement caught my eye. Something shifted between the pillars. My flashlight snapped toward it. Nothing. Just darkness. But I knew I'd seen something. A silhouette. Watching. Then another appeared. And another. Figures stood throughout the massive chamber. Half hidden behind pillars. Dozens of them. Human shapes. Motionless. Observing. My pulse quickened. Boone noticed. They wake when the horn sounds. Who are they? He didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice had become quieter. Sadder. Rangers. I felt a knot form in my stomach. No. Not possible. The flashlight beam swept across the room. The figures slowly emerged from the darkness. Old uniforms. Different decades. Different styles. Some looked modern. Others looked ancient. But all wore ranger insignias. And every single one had black eyes. The realization hit like a hammer. These weren't strangers. These were missing rangers. Every disappearance. Every unsolved case. Every lost station report. All of them. Standing here. Watching me. One figure stepped forward. Then another. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Much more dangerous. Boone raised a hand. The others stopped. They remember what they were. I swallowed. What happened to them? Boone looked toward the depths of the chamber. Toward something hidden beyond the pillars. Then he whispered. They listened. A distant roar echoed through the tunnels. Not the horn. Something else. Something furious. The reaction was immediate. Every black-eyed ranger turned toward the sound. Every one of them. Fear crossed their faces. Fear. That meant whatever made that noise frightened them. The roar came again. Closer. Much closer. The mountain shook violently. Cracks appeared across the stone floor. Ancient dust exploded from the ceiling. Boone's expression darkened. "It's here." My pulse accelerated. "What is?" The answer arrived before Boone could speak. A scream erupted from somewhere in the tunnels. Not human. Not animal. The scream sounded familiar. I realized why a second later. It belonged to the face-changing creature. The thing from outside the station. The supposed monster. The supposed jailer. Something was hunting it. The realization sent ice through my veins. Because predators don't scream unless they've become prey. The black-eyed rangers began backing away. Slowly. Nervously. Like soldiers retreating from an advancing army. Boone grabbed my arm. The touch felt freezing cold. "Move!" I jerked away instinctively. "What?" "If you want to survive, move!" For the first time since meeting him, Boone sounded genuinely afraid. Not manipulative. Not mysterious. Terrified. Another scream echoed through the mountain. Closer now. Followed by a tremendous impact. The stone floor buckled. One of the pillars cracked in half. The chamber trembled. Something enormous was approaching. Fast. Very fast. Boone pointed toward a narrow passage beyond the chamber. "Run!" The black-eyed rangers scattered, disappearing into the darkness. Some vanished behind pillars. Others fled through ancient hallways. All of them running from the same thing. I looked toward the tunnel entrance. Then toward the passage Boone indicated. Neither option felt safe. But staying here felt suicidal. The decision was made for me. A massive shape burst through the tunnel entrance. The entire chamber shook. Stone exploded. Dust filled the air. For one terrifying moment I saw only a silhouette. Towering. Monstrous. Then my flashlight beam found it. The face-changing creature. The jailer. The antlered monster. Only now I could see its condition. It was injured. Badly. Deep wounds covered its body. Black blood dripped onto the stone floor. Several of the screaming faces embedded within its skin had gone silent forever. The creature staggered into the chamber. Then it saw me. And everything stopped. The monster froze. Its countless shifting faces stared directly at me. Then something unexpected happened. It dropped to one knee. As if bowing. The room fell silent. Even Boone looked shocked. The creature spoke. Not with my father's voice. Not with stolen voices. Its own voice. Ancient. Exhausted. Desperate. Bearer. The same word from the radio. My heart hammered. The monster looked terrified. Not of me. Of what followed behind it. The mountain trembled again. A deep cracking noise echoed through the darkness. Stone breaking. Ancient seals failing. The creature slowly rose. Its eyes locked onto mine. And for the first time, I saw intelligence there. Not cruelty. Not hunger. Duty. A duty that had lasted far too long. Then it delivered the warning that changed everything. "The king has awakened." Silence followed. Absolute silence. Even Boone looked horrified. Then a hand emerged from the darkness behind the creature. A giant hand. Pale. Ancient. Far too large to belong to any human. The hand closed around the antlered jailer's throat. The creature screamed. The mountain shook. And something that had slept beneath Appalachia for centuries finally stepped into the light. The hand lifted the antlered jailer off the ground as if it weighed nothing. The creature thrashed. Screamed. Its countless stolen faces twisted in agony. Black blood splattered across the ancient stone floor. Yet the thing holding it barely moved. For several seconds, nobody in the chamber breathed. Not me. Not Boone. Not the black-eyed rangers hiding in the shadows. Everyone stared. Because deep down, we all understood the same horrifying truth. The jailer wasn't the monster anymore. The jailer was the victim. A low cracking sound echoed through the chamber. The giant hand tightened. The antlered creature roared. The mountain shook. Then a voice emerged from the darkness. Calm. Ancient. Patient. My faithful hound. The words rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. The jailer's struggling intensified. Its eyes fixed on me. Desperate. Warning me. Begging me. The darkness behind it shifted. A massive figure stepped forward. My flashlight beam found it. I immediately wished it hadn't. The thing was enormous. Nearly 12 feet tall. Its body resembled a man only in the loosest sense. Pale skin stretched across a frame that seemed carved from marble. Ancient robes hung from its shoulders. A crown made of bone rested upon its head. Not placed there. Grown there. The crown emerged directly from its skull. Its eyes glowed with a faint silver light. And somehow those eyes felt older than the mountain itself. I recognized him instantly. The king. The figure from my vision. The dreamer beneath the mountain. The thing sleeping on the throne. Except now he was awake. And awake looked much worse. The king studied the jailer. Then looked at me. The silver eyes widened slightly. Recognition. The realization made my blood run cold. He knew me. Or thought he did. The king smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile. That somehow made it worse. It was warm. Familiar. Like seeing an old friend. At last. The chamber trembled. Boone immediately dropped to one knee. The black-eyed rangers followed. Every single one. Like worshippers before a god. Only I remained standing. The king's gaze never left me. How many centuries has it been? His voice sounded genuinely curious. I swallowed. No answer came. My mouth had gone dry. The jailer managed to speak. Do not listen. The king's expression darkened. Without warning, he hurled the creature across the chamber. The impact shattered a stone pillar. Ancient masonry exploded everywhere. The jailer crashed through rubble and disappeared into darkness. The king sighed. Always so dramatic. Then his attention returned to me. And somehow that felt even worse. The giant figure descended from the broken platform. Each step shook the mountain. Slow. Measured. Controlled. A predator that no longer needed to rush. You carry the key. I tightened my grip on the backpack. The king's smile widened. Good. A strange pressure filled the air. The silver eyes seemed to pull at my thoughts. My memories. My emotions. Digging through them. Searching. The sensation made me nauseous. Then the king stopped. His expression shifted. Confusion. For the first time. No. His smile vanished. No, no, no. The chamber grew colder. Much colder. The king's eyes narrowed. You are not him. Something in his voice frightened me more than any roar. Disappointment. The king looked genuinely disappointed. Who are you? Before I could answer, Boone spoke. He doesn't remember. The king's gaze shifted toward Boone. Silence followed. Then, neither do you. Boone flinched. The king sighed. Almost sadly. None of you remember. The silver eyes returned to me. Then he asked a question. One question. A question that changed everything. What year is it? The simplicity caught me off guard. 2026. The king froze. Every emotion vanished from his face. For several seconds he simply stared. Then he laughed. The sound echoed through the entire mountain. Not madness. Shock. Disbelief. Impossible. The laughter continued. Impossible. His gaze swept across the chamber. Across the ancient banners. The ruined pillars. The black-eyed rangers. The sleeping kingdom beneath the mountain. And for the first time, I realized something important. The king didn't know how long he had been asleep. The realization struck me like lightning. Everything changed. This wasn't some all-knowing god. This wasn't an omniscient monster. This was a prisoner. A prisoner who had just awakened after centuries. The king's laughter slowly faded. His expression hardened. I slept too long. No one spoke. The mountain remained silent, waiting. Then the king looked toward the darkness beyond the chamber, toward something hidden deeper below. Something even I couldn't see. A strange sadness crossed his face. They are gone. The words sounded almost human. Almost. The king turned back toward me. The kingdoms. My pulse quickened. What kingdoms? The silver eyes focused on mine. And suddenly I saw something. Not with my eyes. With my mind. A memory. His memory. Ancient cities beneath the mountains. Massive underground civilizations. Stone fortresses illuminated by rivers of blue fire. Armies. Crowns. Banners. Thousands upon thousands of people. An entire world hidden beneath Appalachia. Alive. Thriving. Then came darkness. War. Fire. Collapse. Death. The vision ended. I staggered backward. The king remained motionless. You saw it. I couldn't speak. The mountain wasn't hiding a monster. It was hiding a lost civilization. A civilization that had vanished. The implications were staggering. Then the king shattered every assumption I'd formed. It was humanity that destroyed us. The chamber fell silent. Boone slowly lowered his head. The black-eyed rangers avoided looking at the king. The silver eyes focused on me. You have been lied to. The words landed like a hammer. The king pointed toward the tunnel where the jailer had disappeared. That creature is not your protector. A pause. It is your prison guard. The statement echoed through the chamber. For the first time, pieces began aligning. The station. The rules. The disappearances. The warnings. The jailer. Everything suddenly looked different. The king continued. They feared what humanity would become. Another step forward. They sealed us beneath the mountain. Another step. They buried our history. Another. They taught your people to fear us. The silver eyes glowed brighter. And now you call me monster. The chamber shook. The king's voice deepened. The pressure in the air intensified. Reality itself seemed to bend around him. For a moment, I almost believed him. That was the terrifying part. His story made sense. His anger made sense. His sadness made sense. Then I noticed something. The black-eyed rangers. Every one of them looked terrified. Not inspired. Not devoted. Terrified. And suddenly I understood. They knew something I didn't. The king saw me looking. His smile returned. A cold smile. Predatory. Ancient. The mask had slipped. Only for a second. But it was enough. The king followed my gaze toward the black-eyed rangers. Then he laughed softly. They still fear me. The words sounded amused. Pleased. Not saddened. Pleased. The truth hit me instantly. Whatever happened centuries ago, the king wasn't innocent. Not even close. And judging by the fear in every face around me, the real story was far worse than anyone had admitted. Then a horn sounded somewhere deep beneath the mountain. The king's smile vanished. For the first time since awakening, he looked afraid. The horn sounded again. Long. Deep. Ancient. The note rolled through the mountain like a living thing. Every stone in the chamber vibrated. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The black-eyed rangers recoiled as if struck. Even Boone stumbled backward. But it was the king's reaction that caught my attention. Fear. Not concern. Not annoyance. Fear. The silver-eyed giant turned toward the darkness below. Toward the deeper tunnels hidden beyond the chamber. For the first time since awakening, he looked uncertain. The expression lasted only a moment. Then it vanished. But I'd seen it. And once you see fear in a god's eyes, you never forget it. What was that? I asked. The king didn't answer. The horn sounded a third time. Closer. Much closer. The mountain groaned. Ancient cracks spread across the floor. Something beneath us was moving. Something enormous. The king's gaze remained fixed on the darkness. Then he whispered a single name. No. The word barely left his lips. Yet the reaction around the chamber was immediate. Every black-eyed ranger lowered their heads. Boone looked sick. The king's hands clenched into fists. I felt like I had walked into the middle of a war that started centuries before I was born. Then a laugh echoed through the tunnel. Not the king's laugh. Not the jailer's. Someone else's. The sound was old. Tired. And oddly familiar. A figure emerged from the darkness. My pulse quickened. The newcomer wore ranger gear. Modern ranger gear. Not ancient. Not from the 19th century. Current issue. The man's beard was gray. His face weathered. His eyes bright blue. Human blue. Not black. Not silver. Human. I recognized him instantly. Hal? The chief ranger stepped into the chamber. Holding a lantern. Not an electric light. An old brass lantern burning with blue fire. The same unnatural blue I'd seen in the king's memories. For a moment nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then the king smiled. A dangerous smile. You're still alive? Hal stopped 10 feet away. Unfortunately for you. The king laughed. The mountain trembled. You always were stubborn. I stared at both of them. My confusion deepened. They knew each other. Not casually. Personally. The realization made my stomach tighten. Hal looked at me. Then at the backpack. Then at the metal box. His expression darkened. You brought it. I was getting tired of hearing that. Everyone keeps saying that. Because everyone told you not to. Fair point. The king folded his arms. You're wasting time. The silver eyes focused on Hal. Move aside. No. The answer came instantly. Without hesitation. The king's smile vanished. The temperature dropped sharply. The chamber darkened. Silver light spilled from the king's eyes. The stone beneath his feet cracked. You cannot stop this. Hal lifted the lantern. Blue fire surged higher. The king's expression hardened. Interesting. Apparently the lantern mattered. The old ranger's voice echoed through the chamber. Neither can you. For several seconds they stared at one another. Neither moving. Neither blinking. Then I understood. This wasn't their first confrontation. Not even close. This felt old. Ancient. Like two enemies continuing a fight that should have ended centuries ago. The king finally sighed. You should have stayed buried. Hal smiled. So should you. The king moved. The attack happened so fast I barely saw it. One moment he stood 20 feet away. The next he was directly in front of Hal. A silver blur. The impact shattered stone. The shockwave threw me backward. I crashed into a pillar. Pain exploded through my shoulder. The chamber shook violently. Dust filled the air. When it cleared, Hal remained standing. The lantern burned brighter. Blue fire surrounded him like armor. The king's hand had stopped inches from his chest. Blocked. The silver-eyed giant looked genuinely surprised. Hal took advantage of it. He swung the lantern. The blue flame erupted. A torrent of fire exploded across the king's body. The roar that followed shook the mountain. The king staggered backward. His robes burned. Silver light flickered wildly around him. The black-eyed rangers scattered in terror. Boone retreated behind a pillar. I remained frozen. Watching. Trying to understand. The king extinguished the flames with a sweep of his hand. His expression had become dangerous. Very dangerous. That belongs to me. Hal tightened his grip on the lantern. Not anymore. The king's eyes narrowed. Then he looked at me. Everything stopped. His smile returned. Slowly. Predatorially. I don't need the lantern. The silver gaze focused on the backpack. On the box. I only need the key. My blood ran cold. Before I could react, the king raised one hand. The backpack ripped itself from my shoulders. I hit the ground hard. The bag flew across the chamber. Straight toward him. No. Absolutely not. The king caught it effortlessly. The metal box emerged from inside. Floating in the air. Silver light surrounded it. The entire mountain trembled. The horn sounded again. Louder. Closer. The king ignored it. Every ounce of his attention focused on the box. Excitement filled his face. After centuries of imprisonment, victory sat inches away. Then something unexpected happened. Nothing. The box didn't open. The king frowned. The silver light intensified. Still nothing. The box remained closed. The king's expression darkened. He tried again. The ancient lock refused to move. A low growl escaped him. Then he looked at me. And suddenly I understood. The box wasn't responding to him. It was responding to me. The king's smile returned. Only now it looked hungry. Bearer. I hated that word. Open it. No. The answer came naturally. Instantly. The king's eyes narrowed. Open it. Find someone else. The mountain shook. A crack split the floor between us. The king's patience evaporated. The silver light exploded outward. Every pillar trembled. Every banner tore free from the walls. The chamber descended into chaos. Then Hal shouted, "Liam!" I looked toward him. The old ranger pointed toward the deeper tunnels. Toward the darkness below. "Run!" The king's head snapped around. Too late. The floor beneath us exploded. Stone erupted upward. A colossal shape burst through the chamber. The impact threw everyone off their feet. The king stumbled. Hal crashed into a wall. I barely managed to stay standing. Dust swallowed everything. For several seconds I could see nothing. Then the dust cleared. And I finally saw what the horn had been warning us about. A giant armored figure stood in the center of the ruined chamber. 30 feet tall. Made of stone and iron. Antlers of black crystal rose from its head. Blue fire burned inside its chest. Ancient symbols covered its body. The same symbols from the box. The same symbols from the station. The same symbols from the lost kingdom. The giant slowly turned its head. Its glowing eyes locked onto the king. The silver-eyed ruler looked horrified. Truly horrified. Then the giant spoke. Its voice sounded like mountains grinding together. The sentence remains. Silence followed. Absolute silence. The giant raised a colossal spear. Blue fire erupted across the weapon. The king's face lost all color. And for the first time, I realized there had once been something powerful enough to imprison him. Something powerful enough to defeat him. Something that had finally awakened. The giant moved first. Its spear came down like a falling tower. The king vanished a fraction of a second before impact. The weapon struck the chamber floor. The explosion that followed nearly deafened me. Stone shattered. Ancient pillars collapsed. A shockwave blasted through the cavern, throwing rangers, rubble, and centuries of dust into the air. I slammed into a broken section of wall, and hit hard enough to see stars. For several seconds, all I could hear was ringing. Then the screaming began. The black-eyed rangers were running. Not fighting. Not helping. Running. The giant guardian had awakened, and apparently even the dead remembered what it was capable of. I forced myself upright. The chamber was falling apart. Massive cracks split the walls. Chunks of stone rained from above. Blue fire poured from fractures in the floor like glowing rivers. The king reappeared atop a shattered pillar. His silver eyes blazed with fury. Gone was the calm ruler. Gone was the patient prisoner. Now I was seeing whatever had terrified an entire civilization. "You should have stayed asleep." The giant ignored him. Its glowing eyes remained fixed on the king. The sentence remains. The same words. Again. Like a command carved into reality itself. The king laughed. But there was strain in it now. "You don't even know why you're fighting." The giant took a step forward. The entire chamber trembled. The sentence remains. The king's smile vanished. Then he attacked. Silver light exploded from his body. A wave of force surged across the cavern. Stone disintegrated. Pillars snapped. The giant staggered backward for the first time. The king launched himself forward. The collision shook the mountain. I watched two ancient powers slam into one another while the world around them collapsed. And then Hal grabbed my shoulder. "Move!" He practically dragged me away from a falling section of ceiling. A heartbeat later, several tons of stone crashed where I'd been standing. "Thanks." "You're welcome. Any chance someone explains what's happening?" "No." At least he was honest. We ran through the chaos. The chamber had become a battlefield. Blue fire and silver light tore through ancient architecture. The giant and the king crashed through pillars. Each blow felt capable of leveling buildings. Meanwhile, I was still carrying a mysterious box everyone wanted. I was beginning to suspect my life choices weren't great. Another impact rattled the cavern. The giant's spear swept through the air. The king barely avoided it. The weapon struck a stone wall instead. The entire section exploded. A hidden passage appeared beyond it. Hal froze. His face went pale. "Oh no." I looked at him. "What?" The old ranger stared at the newly exposed tunnel. Fear filled his eyes. Real fear. Not concern. Not caution. Fear. Then something emerged from the darkness. At first I thought it was smoke. Then shadows. Then I realized they were people. Hundreds of them. Silent figures walking through the tunnel. Men. Women. Children. All wearing clothing from different centuries. Different eras. Different lives. Every one of them had completely black eyes. The black-eyed rangers weren't unique. They were only the beginning. The sight made my blood run cold. "What are they?" Hal's answer came immediately. "The lost." The words landed heavily. Every missing hiker. Every vanished hunter. Every unexplained disappearance. Generations of people. Walking together through the darkness. Thousands of stories. Thousands of lives. Gone. The crowd slowly entered the ruined chamber. None of them looked at me. None of them acknowledged the battle. They simply walked. Toward the deeper tunnels beneath the mountain. Toward something hidden far below. Like pilgrims answering a call. Then I heard it. A whisper. My name. I turned. A young woman stood near the edge of the crowd. Brown hair. Green eyes. A scar above her left eyebrow. My heart stopped. No. She couldn't be here. It wasn't possible. She smiled sadly. "Liam." I stared. Frozen. Because I knew her. Emily Carter. My first serious girlfriend. The woman who vanished during a hiking trip 8 years ago. The woman whose disappearance haunted me for years. The woman everyone assumed was dead. She stood only 20 feet away. Looking exactly as I remembered. Not older. Not younger. Exactly the same. My pulse hammered. "Emily?" Hal cursed. "Liam, don't." I barely heard him. Emily stepped closer. Tears filled her eyes. "It's really me." The words shattered something inside me. For years I'd wondered what happened to her. I'd searched. Obsessed. Refused to let it go. And now she was standing here. Alive. Or something close to alive. The battle vanished from my attention. The collapsing cavern vanished. Everything vanished except her. Emily smiled. "I found the truth." Something about the way she said it bothered me. The smile felt wrong. Too perfect. Too calm. Behind her, the crowd continued marching into darkness. An endless procession of the lost. I took a step forward. Hal grabbed my arm. Hard. "Look at her eyes." I did. My stomach dropped. Black. Completely black. Not green. Not human. Black. The same as Boone. The same as the others. Emily's smile faltered. For a moment something else appeared beneath it. Something hungry. Something ancient. Then she whispered, "He misses you?" The words made no sense. At least not until the mountain answered. A voice echoed from below. Far beneath us. Deep within the earth. The king. Not the one fighting. Another voice. Older. Vaster. Sleeping. Dreaming. Liam. The sound rolled through the tunnels. Through the stone. Through my bones. Every lost soul stopped walking. Simultaneously. Thousands of heads turned toward me. Every black eye focused on me. My pulse nearly stopped. The attention felt unbearable. Predatory. Ancient. The voice spoke again. Liam. The box in my backpack suddenly became hot. Painfully hot. I tore it free. The brass symbol glowed bright blue. The lock clicked. For the first time since I'd found it, the box began to open. Not by force. Not by magic. By choice. It wanted to open. And whatever waited inside had finally decided I was ready. "No," Hal whispered. The old ranger looked horrified. The battle behind us faded. The giant guardian. The king. The lost souls. None of them mattered anymore. Because every eye in the cavern had fixed upon the box. The lid slowly rose. A brilliant blue light spilled into the darkness. And from somewhere deep beneath the Appalachian Mountains, something ancient finally laughed. The giant moved first. Its spear came down like a falling tower. The king vanished a fraction of a second before impact. The weapon struck the chamber floor. The explosion that followed nearly deafened me. Stone shattered. Ancient pillars collapsed. A shockwave blasted through the cavern, throwing rangers, rubble, and centuries of dust into the air. I slammed into a broken section of wall, and hit hard enough to see stars. For several seconds, all I could hear was ringing. Then the screaming began. The black-eyed rangers were running. Not fighting. Not helping. Running. The giant guardian had awakened, and apparently even the dead remembered what it was capable of. I forced myself upright. The chamber was falling apart. Massive cracks split the walls. Chunks of stone rained from above. Blue fire poured from fractures in the floor like glowing rivers. The king reappeared atop a shattered pillar. His silver eyes blazed with fury. Gone was the calm ruler. Gone was the patient prisoner. Now I was seeing whatever had terrified an entire civilization. "You should have stayed asleep." The giant ignored him. Its glowing eyes remained fixed on the king. "The sentence remains." The same words. Again. Like a command carved into reality itself. The king laughed. But there was strain in it now. "You don't even know why you're fighting." The giant took a step forward. The entire chamber trembled. "The sentence remains." The king's smile vanished. Then he attacked. Silver light exploded from his body. A wave of force surged across the cavern. Stone disintegrated. Pillars snapped. The giant staggered backward for the first time. The king launched himself forward. The collision shook the mountain. I watched two ancient powers slam into one another while the world around them collapsed. And then Hal grabbed my shoulder. "Move!" He practically dragged me away from a falling section of ceiling. A heartbeat later, several tons of stone crashed where I'd been standing. "Thanks." "You're welcome. Any chance someone explains what's happening?" "No." At least he was honest. We ran through the chaos. The chamber had become a battlefield. Blue fire and silver light tore through ancient architecture. The giant and the king crashed through pillars. Each blow felt capable of leveling buildings. Meanwhile, I was still carrying a mysterious box everyone wanted. I was beginning to suspect my life choices weren't great. Another impact rattled the cavern. The giant's spear swept through the air. The king barely avoided it. The weapon struck a stone wall instead. The entire section exploded. A hidden passage appeared beyond it. Hal froze. His face went pale. "Oh no." I looked at him. "What?" The old ranger stared at the newly exposed tunnel. Fear filled his eyes. Real fear. Not concern. Not caution. Fear. Then something emerged from the darkness. At first I thought it was smoke. Then shadows. Then I realized they were people. Hundreds of them. Silent figures walking through the tunnel. Men. Women. Children. All wearing clothing from different centuries. Different eras. Different lives. Every one of them had completely black eyes. The black-eyed rangers weren't unique. They were only the beginning. The sight made my blood run cold. What are they? Hal's answer came immediately. The lost. The words landed heavily. Every missing hiker. Every vanished hunter. Every unexplained disappearance. Generations of people. Walking together through the darkness. Thousands of stories. Thousands of lives. Gone. The crowd slowly entered the ruined chamber. None of them looked at me. None of them acknowledged the battle. They simply walked. Toward the deeper tunnels beneath the mountain. Toward something hidden far below. Like pilgrims answering a call. Then I heard it. A whisper. My name. I turned. A young woman stood near the edge of the crowd. Brown hair. Green eyes. A scar above her left eyebrow. My heart stopped. No. She couldn't be here. It wasn't possible. She smiled sadly. Liam. I stared. Frozen. Because I knew her. Emily Carter. My first serious girlfriend. The woman who vanished during a hiking trip 8 years ago. The woman whose disappearance haunted me for years. The woman everyone assumed was dead. She stood only 20 feet away. Looking exactly as I remembered. Not older. Not younger. Exactly the same. My pulse hammered. Emily? Hal cursed. Liam, don't. I barely heard him. Emily stepped closer. Tears filled her eyes. It's really me. The words shattered something inside me. For years I'd wondered what happened to her. I'd searched. Obsessed. Refused to let it go. And now she was standing here. Alive. Or something close to alive. The battle vanished from my attention. The collapsing cavern vanished. Everything vanished except her. Emily smiled. I found the truth. Something about the way she said it bothered me. The smile felt wrong. Too perfect. Too calm. Behind her, the crowd continued marching into darkness. An endless procession of the lost. I took a step forward. Hal grabbed my arm. Hard. Look at her eyes. I did. My stomach dropped. Black. Completely black. Not green. Not human. Black. The same as Boone. The same as the others. Emily's smile faltered. For a moment something else appeared beneath it. Something hungry. Something ancient. Then she whispered, He misses you? The words made no sense. At least not until the mountain answered. A voice echoed from below. Far beneath us. Deep within the earth. The king. Not the one fighting. Another voice. Older. Vaster. Sleeping. Dreaming. Liam. The sound rolled through the tunnels. Through the stone. Through my bones. Every lost soul stopped walking. Simultaneously. Thousands of heads turned toward me. Every black eye focused on me. My pulse nearly stopped. The attention felt unbearable. Predatory. Ancient. The voice spoke again. Liam. The box in my backpack suddenly became hot. Painfully hot. I tore it free. The brass symbol glowed bright blue. The lock clicked. For the first time since I'd found it, the box began to open. Not by force. Not by magic. By choice. It wanted to open. And whatever waited inside had finally decided I was ready. No, Hal whispered. The old ranger looked horrified. The battle behind us faded. The giant guardian. The king. The lost souls. None of them mattered anymore. Because every eye in the cavern had fixed upon the box. The lid slowly rose. A brilliant blue light spilled into the darkness. And from somewhere deep beneath the Appalachian Mountains, something ancient finally laughed. The box opened completely. Blue light flooded the cavern. Every shadow retreated. Every crack in the stone glowed. The mountain itself seemed to pause. Waiting. Watching. Listening. I expected a key. A weapon. A relic. Something physical. Something I could understand. Instead, the box contained a single object. A black stone. Smooth. Perfectly round. No larger than a baseball. For several seconds, nobody moved. The giant guardian froze. The king froze. The endless crowd of the lost stood motionless. Even the battle stopped. Everything stopped. The moment I touched the stone, reality shattered. The cavern disappeared. The mountain disappeared. The world disappeared. I was falling. Not through space. Through memory. Through time. Millions of images flashed around me. Civilizations rising. Empires collapsing. Mountains forming. Rivers changing course. The history of Appalachia unfolded before my eyes. Then the vision slowed. And the truth finally revealed itself. I stood inside a city. Not a human city. Not exactly. The architecture resembled the kingdom from the king's memories. Towering stone structures. Blue fires. Massive halls carved into the bones of mountains. Thousands of people filled the streets. Yet they weren't human. Not entirely. Some possessed antlers. Others bore silver eyes. Others carried strange markings that glowed faintly beneath their skin. They looked like humanity viewed through a distorted mirror. Related. But different. A voice spoke behind me. Now you see. I turned. The speaker wasn't the king. It wasn't Hal. It wasn't the jailer. It was an old woman wearing a crown of black branches. Her eyes glowed blue. The same color as the stone. The same color as the guardian's fire. Something about her presence felt immense. Ancient. Terrifying. Yet oddly comforting. Who are you? The woman smiled. I am the last witness. The city around us continued moving. People laughed. Worked. Lived. Unaware they were being observed. The king showed you his version. She gestured toward the city. Now you will see mine. The vision changed. Darkness swept across the streets. The sky cracked. Not literally. Reality cracked. Rifts appeared above the city. Massive tears in existence itself. Things emerged from them. Things with too many eyes. Too many mouths. Too many impossible shapes. Creatures that seemed to violate every law of nature. The city erupted into chaos. People ran. Screamed. Died. The monsters spread through the kingdom like a plague. The old woman watched silently. This was the first breach. I stared. Unable to look away. The nightmare continued. Entire districts vanished. Armies fell. Cities burned. The creatures multiplied. Then the king appeared. Younger. Different. Not yet corrupted. Not yet monstrous. He stood before the survivors. And made a promise. I will save us. The old woman nodded. He believed it. The vision accelerated. The king gathered scholars. Mystics. Warriors. They searched desperately for answers. For weapons. For salvation. Then they found something. A gate. Ancient beyond imagination. Hidden beneath the mountains. A doorway connecting realities. The source of the invasion. The source of the monsters. The source of everything. My stomach tightened. The old woman continued. The gate could be closed. Relief surged through me. Then vanished. At a cost. Of course. There was always a cost. The vision changed again. The king stood before the gate. Studying it. Obsessing over it. Months passed. Years. Then decades. His expression changed. His goals changed. His ambition changed. I began seeing the truth. The king no longer wanted to close the gate. He wanted to control it. The realization hit like a hammer. The old woman nodded sadly. He saw opportunity. The visions accelerated. Experiments. Failures. Forbidden rituals. Entire villages disappearing. Prisoners being sacrificed. Reality being twisted. The king became obsessed. Not with saving his people. With mastering the power beyond the gate. Thousands died. Then tens of thousands. The kingdom fractured. Civil war erupted. And finally, the truth emerged. The monsters weren't invading anymore. The king was bringing them through. I stared in horror. No. The old woman looked at me. Yes. The visions continued. The antlered jailer appeared. Not as a monster. As a warrior. A champion. One of many. The guardians rose against the king. The kingdom burned. The war lasted generations. Entire civilizations collapsed. Finally, the guardians succeeded. The king was defeated. Imprisoned. Buried beneath the mountains. The gate was sealed. The surviving guardians became jailers. The remaining cities vanished. History forgot. Humanity moved on. The vision faded. Silence followed. Then the old woman spoke one final truth. The king was never the prisoner's greatest threat. A chill ran through me. What do you mean? She looked upward. Towards something beyond the vision. Beyond reality itself. Towards something waiting. Something hungry. The gate is still there. The words struck harder than everything else. The king wasn't the final problem. The gate was. The source remained. The breach remained. The danger remained. The old woman stepped closer. For the first time, I noticed sadness in her eyes. You carry more than a key. I frowned. What am I carrying? The answer came quietly. A choice. The vision shattered. The cavern returned instantly. The lost souls. The guardian. The king. Hell. Everything. Yet now I understood. At least enough to be terrified. The king's silver eyes burned with fury. He knew what I had seen. He knew the truth was out. For a moment neither of us moved. Then he smiled. A cold smile. A desperate smile. The smile of a cornered king. She only told you half the story. The giant guardian lowered its spear. The blue fire intensified. The lost souls began whispering. Thousands of voices speaking at once. The mountain trembled. Deep below, something answered. Not the king. Not the gate. Something older. Something waking. The stone in my hand grew warmer. A symbol appeared across its surface. A map. An ancient map. One showing tunnels beneath the entire Appalachian Range. Thousands of miles of tunnels. Hidden kingdoms. Forgotten prisons. Lost gates. And one location marked brighter than all the others. A place called the First Door. Hal saw it. The color drained from his face. The king's expression transformed into pure panic. For the first time since awakening, the ancient ruler looked truly afraid. Then the mountain shook harder than ever before. A crack split the cavern floor from end to end. Blue light erupted from the abyss beneath us. And a voice older than the king echoed upward from the darkness. I am still waiting. The voice from the abyss silenced everything. The lost souls stopped whispering. The guardian froze. The king went pale. Even the mountain seemed to hold its breath. I am still waiting. The words echoed through every tunnel beneath Appalachia. Not spoken. Remembered. As if the mountain itself had carried the message for thousands of years. The blue light pouring from the crack intensified. The stone in my hand grew hotter. Symbols crawled across its surface like living things. Ancient pathways. Forgotten roads. Hidden chambers. The entire underground world unfolded before me. And at the center of it all sat a single location. The First Door. Every path led there. Every kingdom connected to it. Every prison had been built around it. The realization hit me immediately. The king had never been the true center of this story. He was only one consequence. The first door was the cause. Hal reached me first. His eyes remained fixed on the stone. We have to get there. The king laughed. A harsh sound. Desperate. You think it's that simple? The giant guardian lowered its spear toward him. Blue fire rippled along the weapon. The king ignored it. His silver eyes remained locked on me. Do you know what waits beyond the first door? I thought about the visions. The creatures. The breaches. The destruction. No. The king smiled sadly. Neither do I. That answer surprised me. The ancient ruler looked toward the abyss. Toward the blue light. Toward the voice that had frightened him. It existed before my people. The chamber trembled again. The king spoke softly now. Almost to himself. It existed before humanity. A cold knot formed in my stomach. The old woman from the vision had called the gate ancient. But this was something worse. Something older than civilizations. Older than kingdoms. Possibly older than history itself. The guardian stepped forward. Its massive spear leveled directly at the king. The sentence remains. The king looked up. Exhaustion filled his face. I know. For a moment he didn't sound like a monster. He sounded tired. Very tired. Then the mountain exploded. A deafening roar erupted somewhere below. The crack widened. Stone shattered. Blue fire surged upward. The entire cavern began collapsing. Hal grabbed my arm. We're out of time. The giant guardian turned toward the abyss. For the first time, it seemed uncertain. The king noticed. His eyes narrowed. Then he smiled. A dangerous smile. Do you finally hear it? The guardian remained silent. The roar came again. Louder. Closer. Something was climbing. Not walking. Climbing. Using the tunnels. Approaching the surface. The lost souls reacted first. Thousands of black-eyed figures suddenly turned toward the crack. Fear spread through the crowd. Then panic. The procession broke. People scattered in every direction. Running. Fleeing. The sight chilled me. If even the dead were afraid. Whatever was coming was unimaginably bad. The king looked at me. Now do you understand? The silver eyes held no arrogance. No manipulation. Only urgency. If the first door opens completely, none of this matters. He gestured toward the cavern. The guardian. The kingdoms. The prison. The war ends. A pause. Because everything ends. Silence followed. The statement felt true. Dangerously true. Hal exhaled heavily. That's why they buried you. The king's expression darkened. No. The answer came immediately. They buried me because I wanted to control it. The admission surprised everyone. Even the guardian seemed to pause. The king laughed bitterly. I was arrogant. The mountain shook again. More stone collapsed. Blue light flooded the chamber. The king looked toward the abyss. I thought I could master what lived beyond the door. A pause. I was wrong. The words carried centuries of regret. For a brief moment I saw him differently. Not as a king. Not as a monster. As a man who had made the worst mistake in history. Then the moment passed. The guardian's spear remained aimed at his chest. Some mistakes don't deserve forgiveness. The stone in my hand pulsed. A new path appeared across its surface. Not a map. A route. Leading away from the chamber. Leading deeper underground. Toward the first door. Hal saw it immediately. So that's how we get there. The king nodded. Yes. The guardian finally spoke. The bearer must choose. The statement echoed through the cavern. Everyone looked at me. The realization hit hard. The choice from the vision. This was it. Not later. Now. I looked at the guardian. What choice? Blue fire burned inside its eyes. The door. I looked at the king. What happens if we leave it sealed? The answer came quickly. The prison survives. And you? A faint smile crossed his face. I remain a prisoner. I turned toward the abyss. What happens if it opens? Nobody answered. Nobody needed to. The silence said enough. The roar from below shattered the moment. A massive claw emerged from the crack. The sight stole my breath. The claw wasn't merely large. It was impossible. Covered in shifting eyes. Covered in symbols that hurt to look at. Reality warped around it. The stone walls bent. The air distorted. The creature wasn't entering the world. The world was changing to accommodate it. The guardian moved instantly. Its spear struck downward. Blue fire erupted. The claw recoiled. The roar that followed shook the entire mountain range. The king stared into the abyss. Fear returned to his face. Raw fear. The kind that cannot be faked. Then he looked at me. Go. The word surprised me. What? Go. The silver eyes hardened. You are the only one who can reach the door. Another impact shook the cavern. The guardian fought desperately against whatever climbed below. The crack widened. More eyes appeared in the darkness. Watching. Waiting. Hungry. The king stepped between me and the abyss. For the first time since awakening, he positioned himself as a shield. Not a threat. A shield. I'll hold this. The statement sounded ridiculous. Then I remembered who he was. The guardian stared at him. The king stared back. An understanding passed between them. Ancient enemies. Ancient responsibilities. Ancient guilt. Finally, the guardian nodded. A single nod. Nothing more. Yet somehow it carried the weight of centuries. Hal grabbed my shoulder. Time to move. I looked at the route glowing across the stone. The path to the first door. The path to the truth. The path to whatever waited at the beginning of all this. Behind me, the king turned toward the abyss. Silver light erupted around him. The guardian raised its spear. Blue fire exploded across the cavern. Together, jailer and prisoner prepared to face the thing climbing from below. And for the first time in a very long time, they were fighting on the same side. I never expected to leave an ancient king and his immortal jailer fighting side by side. Yet that's exactly what happened. As Hal and I ran from the collapsing chamber, the sounds of their battle followed us through the tunnels. Blue fire. Silver light. Roars that shook entire mountains. The war beneath Appalachia had begun again. And somehow, I was running towards something worse. The first door. The glowing stone guided us through passages no map had ever recorded. Some tunnels appeared natural. Others had clearly been carved by intelligent hands. Ancient hands. The deeper we traveled, the stranger everything became. The walls no longer consisted entirely of stone. Black metal appeared beneath the rock. Massive structures emerged from the darkness. Bridges. Towers. Entire sections of forgotten cities buried beneath miles of mountain. Every civilization I'd seen in the visions suddenly felt real. Because it was real. This wasn't mythology. This wasn't folklore. An entire world had existed beneath Appalachia. And most of it was still here. Waiting. The stone pulsed. The path continued. Hours might have passed. Or minutes. Time felt distorted underground. Eventually we reached a colossal staircase descending into darkness. The steps stretched so far downward that my flashlight couldn't reach the bottom. Hal stopped. His face had gone pale. We're close. The air felt different here. Heavier. Older. Every breath carried a strange metallic taste. The sensation reminded me of standing near high-voltage power lines. Something enormous existed nearby. Something ancient. Then we heard singing. My heart stopped. A choir echoed from below. Thousands of voices. Soft. Beautiful. Wrong. The melody seemed almost familiar. The kind of song you recognize without ever having heard. Hal immediately cursed. What? His grip tightened on the lantern. Don't listen. Naturally, I listened. Big mistake. The moment the music reached me, images flooded my mind. Peace. Comfort. Belonging. Every fear I'd ever carried vanished. Every regret disappeared. The song promised an end to pain, an end to loss, an end to loneliness. I understood why people followed it, why entire civilizations might have followed it. Then hell slapped me. Hard. Pain shattered the trance instantly. What was that for? You started walking. I froze. Walking where? Then I looked down. My stomach dropped. I had moved halfway down the staircase without realizing it. The singing grew louder. The realization terrified me. Whatever waited below didn't need force. It used temptation. The worst monsters rarely needed claws. We continued downward. The music intensified. Whispers joined it. Promises. Dreams. Memories. Everything I wanted most. Everything I regretted losing. Then Emily's voice emerged from the choir. Liam. I clenched my jaw. Not real. Not real. Not real. The voice continued anyway. You can still save me. That one hurt. Because part of me wanted to believe it. Part of me desperately wanted to believe it. The staircase eventually ended. The sight waiting below stole my breath. The first door stood before us. Calling it a door felt inadequate. It was a mountain-sized structure carved directly into reality. Not stone. Not metal. Something else. Something impossible. The surface shifted constantly. Symbols appeared and vanished. Stars moved across it. Entire galaxies seemed trapped beneath its skin. The thing looked less like a door and more like a wound. A wound sealed long ago. And now failing. Cracks covered its surface. Blue light leaked through them. The singing poured from the gaps. I understood immediately. Everything had started here. The invasions. The kingdoms. The king. The prison. The lost souls. All of it. A single doorway. One terrible mistake repeated across centuries. Then I noticed someone standing before it. An old woman. The witness from my vision. She stood motionless. Waiting. As though she had known exactly when I would arrive. You came. I approached carefully. What are you? She smiled. Tired. Fair answer. The witness looked toward the door. The seal is failing. The cracks widened slightly. The singing grew louder. Reality bent around the structure. The floor rippled like water. The walls twisted. The door wasn't opening. The world around it was weakening. I held up the stone. What do I do? The witness became serious. The same thing every bearer has done. My pulse quickened. Every bearer? She nodded. There were others. Of course there were. The realization should have been obvious. This responsibility hadn't begun with me. Others had carried it. Others had made this choice. The witness pointed toward the center of the door. A circular depression became visible. The exact size of the stone. A keyhole. Not for a key. For the stone itself. The final piece clicked into place. The stone wasn't a map. It wasn't a weapon. It was the lock. The witness looked at me. One path restores the prison. A pause. The other destroys it. I swallowed. And the king? Her expression softened. He remains imprisoned. I looked toward the glowing cracks. And what's behind the door? For the first time, fear crossed her face. Real fear. The answer came quietly. Hunger. The word echoed through the chamber. Not a creature. Not an army. Hunger. Something so ancient that language itself struggled to describe it. The singing suddenly stopped. Silence flooded the chamber. Every hair on my body stood up. The witness looked toward the door. Alarm filled her eyes. No. The cracks widened. Blue light erupted outward. The entire structure trembled. Then something looked back. An eye. A colossal eye opened beyond the crack. The sight nearly shattered my sanity. It wasn't merely large. It was endless. The eye seemed to contain storms, worlds, entire realities. And it was looking directly at me. The voice that followed didn't come through the door. It came through my mind, through my memories, through my soul. Bearer. The stone burned in my hand. The eye blinked. The mountain shook violently. The door cracked further. And suddenly I understood. There wasn't enough time left to debate. There wasn't enough time left to prepare. The choice had arrived. Right now. The first door was opening. And only one person could decide whether it stayed that way. The eye stared at me from the crack in the first door. And for one terrifying moment, I understood why entire civilizations had fallen. It wasn't power. It wasn't violence. It wasn't even fear. It was certainty. The thing beyond the door radiated absolute certainty. A certainty that nothing mattered. That every kingdom would eventually fall. That every prison would eventually fail. That every life would eventually end. The presence behind the door wasn't evil. It was something much worse. It was inevitable. The voice echoed through my mind again. Bearer. The stone in my hand became almost unbearably hot. The circular depression in the door glowed. Waiting. The choice. Now. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. The witness looked at me. Her fear was gone. Only acceptance remained. The prison was never meant to last forever. The cracks widened. Blue light flooded the chamber. Reality bent around the door. The giant eye opened further. And for a split second, I saw what existed beyond. An ocean. Not water. Not darkness. An endless ocean of living consciousness. Countless shapes moved beneath its surface. Entire worlds drifted inside it like floating debris. Civilizations. Creatures. Things beyond description. Everything consumed. Everything absorbed. Everything remembered. Hunger. The name suddenly made sense. The king hadn't feared a monster. He had feared an idea. An ancient force that consumed realities the way fire consumes wood. The eye focused on me. Bearer. Come home. The invitation felt genuine. That terrified me. Because part of me wanted to accept. Part of me wanted the answers. The knowledge. The impossible truths waiting beyond the door. That was how it worked. Not through force. Through curiosity. Through temptation. Through desire. The same mistake the king had made. The same mistake countless others had made. The realization hit hard. This wasn't a battle. It never had been. It was a test. A test repeated across generations. And every bearer eventually faced the same choice. Power. Or sacrifice. The witness stepped beside me. Now you understand. I nodded. I did. Finally. The stone pulsed one last time. The door shook. The eye watched. Waiting. I thought about Hal. About Emily. About the lost souls wandering beneath the mountain. I thought about the king. The arrogant ruler who believed he could control the impossible. I thought about the guardian. The jailer who had spent centuries protecting humanity from a threat most people never knew existed. And then I made my choice. I placed the stone into the depression. The reaction was immediate. The first door roared. Not metaphorically. Actually roared. The sound erupted through every tunnel beneath Appalachia. The mountain shook. The cracks spread. For one horrifying second, I thought I had made the wrong decision. Then the blue light changed. The cracks stopped widening. The singing vanished. The eye narrowed. The voice became angry. Bearer. The stone locked into place. Ancient symbols ignited across the surface of the door. Thousands of them. Millions. Entire languages long forgotten. The seal was restoring itself. Slowly. Painfully. But it was working. The eye stared at me. Hatred filled it. The kind of hatred that can survive eternity. You will see me again. The statement felt less like a threat and more like a promise. The door began closing. The eye shrank. The blue light faded. Reality stabilized. The chamber stopped shaking. And after countless centuries, the first door sealed itself once more. Silence followed. Beautiful silence. The witness smiled. A genuine smile. For the first time. It is done! Then she began to fade. I frowned. What? Her form became transparent. Like mist in sunlight. My task is finished. The realization hit immediately. She wasn't alive. She hadn't been alive for a very long time. The witness looked toward the sealed door. Peace filled her expression. Then she looked at me. There will be another. A chill ran down my spine. Another what? Her smile faded. Door. And then she vanished. Completely. Gone. The chamber fell silent once more. For several minutes, neither Hal nor I spoke. There was nothing left to say. The impossible had happened. The world had survived. At least for now. We began the long journey back. The climb felt endless. The tunnels seemed quieter. Older. As though the mountain itself had relaxed. Hours later we finally reached the ruined cavern where everything had started. The sight waiting for us stopped me cold. The battle was over. The guardian remained standing. Its spear planted into the stone. Blue fire burned softly inside its chest. Motionless. Silent. Watching. The king sat against a shattered pillar. His silver eyes closed. Ancient robes torn. Ancient pride broken. For several seconds I thought he was dead. Then he spoke. Without opening his eyes. You chose correctly. The words surprised me. The king slowly looked up. The arrogance was gone. The anger was gone. Only exhaustion remained. The weight of centuries. The burden of failure. The knowledge that his prison would continue. I spent my life trying to master the door. A faint smile crossed his face. You were wiser than I was. I didn't know how to respond. The king looked toward the guardian. The ancient jailer remained silent. Watching. Waiting. Still carrying out a duty older than nations. The king exhaled. Then the silver eyes closed once more. Stone slowly spread across his skin. Across his robes. Across his crown. The transformation continued. The prison restoring itself. The sentence continuing. The guardian lowered its head. Not in triumph. In respect. Ancient enemies. Bound together by a mistake neither could undo. By the time Hal and I reached the surface, dawn had arrived. The Appalachian wilderness looked normal. Birds sang. Wind moved through the trees. Sunlight touched the mountains. Anyone passing by would have seen nothing unusual. No kingdoms. No prison. No ancient war. Just wilderness. That was the frightening part. Most people would never know how close everything had come to ending. 3 weeks later, Station 12 officially closed. Federal authorities arrived. Records vanished. Reports disappeared. The government denied everything. Predictably. Life slowly returned to normal. Or at least something resembling normal. Then came the package. No return address. No explanation. It arrived at my apartment on a rainy Thursday evening. Inside sat a single object. An old photograph. Black and white. Faded with age. The image showed 6 people standing beside a stone archway. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Then I noticed the date written on the back. 1784. My stomach tightened. Photography didn't exist in 1784. Yet that wasn't the disturbing part. The disturbing part was the stone archway. I recognized it immediately. The structure from the photograph matched the symbol map from the stone. Exactly. Another door. Not the first door. A different one. And someone had written a message beneath the picture. 3 simple words. Found the second. I stared at the photograph for a very long time. Then I noticed one final detail. A figure stood in the background, partially hidden behind the archway, watching the camera. Watching me. The image was blurry, faded, difficult to make out, but not impossible. I recognized the antlers, the jailer, and beneath the photograph sat a second note. A warning, or perhaps an invitation. I still haven't decided which. The note read, "Rule number 3 only applies to Station 12. And that's when I realized the nightmare beneath Appalachia wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning.